The sound of Karen's scream cut through the summer air like a fire alarm. I was polishing the hood of my new Rolls Royce, the deep black paint catching the sunlight like liquid glass, when I heard her shriek. It wasn't the kind of sound a normal neighbor made. It was the kind of shrill, gut-twisting noise you hear in a nightmare. She waddled down the street, clipboard clutched in one hand, the other waving wildly as if she'd caught me committing some unspeakable crime. "You can't have that here," she bellowed, her cheeks flushed red, sweat dripping down her temples. "This is an HOA community, and that monstrosity violates everything." Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains, phones already rising into recording positions. Karen lived for moments like this, but today she seemed unhinged. Her eyes locked on the Rolls Royce like it was a demon she had to banish. My wife, standing on the porch with folded arms, whispered under her breath, "Here we go again." I sighed, wiping the last streak from the hood before facing her. "Karen, it's my car. My property. It's not against any bylaw." But reasoning with her was like trying to put out a house fire with a garden hose. She stormed closer, puffing like a steam engine, shouting about community standards and visual disruptions. Her voice cracked with rage. "This neighborhood is for families, not for people flaunting their wealth. We'll look like a circus if you keep that thing in your driveway." I almost laughed at the absurdity, but the fury in her eyes told me laughter might set her off like dynamite. Still, my patience was wearing thin. "Karen, it's parked legally. You don't get to dictate what car I drive." That's when she did something I didn't expect. She pulled out her phone not to record, but to call the cops. "Yes, officers. We have a suspicious vehicle, possibly stolen. Very threatening presence," she said, loud enough for every neighbor to hear. My jaw dropped. She wasn't just angry. She was weaponizing law enforcement against me. And in that moment, I knew things were about to spiral out of control. Within minutes, the flashing lights of a police cruiser turned the corner. Karen strutted toward it like she had summoned angels. "There he is," she shouted, pointing at me with wild eyes. "That's the thief. He's flaunting a stolen luxury car right in front of children." The officers stepped out cautiously, hands resting near their belts. My heart hammered against my ribs, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I knew exactly how dangerous false accusations could become. I raised my hand slowly. "Officers, this is my car. I have the title and registration inside. I can show you." But Karen was relentless, shouting over me. "Don't believe him. People like him don't belong in this neighborhood. Arrest him before he runs." The venom in her voice chilled me. It wasn't just about the car. It was about me. The neighbors murmured, some gasping, others whispering into their phones as they streamed the scene live. My wife stormed down the porch steps, face pale with fury. "This is harassment. You can't just accuse him." But Karen only doubled down, screaming louder, her voice cracking like a banshee. The officers exchanged glances, tension thick in the air. Then one of them stepped forward. "Sir, we're going to need you to come with us while we verify ownership." Handcuffs clicked around my wrists, cold steel biting my skin. Gasps echoed through the cul-de-sac, and I heard one kid cry out, "But that's his car. I saw him driving it yesterday." My wife's face crumpled with rage and fear. Karen, meanwhile, smirked like a queen watching her enemy dragged away in chains. And just when it seemed like she had won, the twist arrived. A black SUV screeched to a halt, and out stepped Chief Daniels, the city's police commander and an old friend of mine from years back. His voice thundered as he marched up. "What the hell is going on here?" Everyone froze. The officer holding me stiffened, the cuffs still biting into my wrists. Karen rushed forward, shrieking, "Chief, thank God you're here. Arrest him. He's parading around with a stolen Rolls Royce." The chief's eyes narrowed as he scanned the scene. Then he looked straight at me, recognition dawning. His face hardened as he turned on Karen. "This man is no thief. He's the police commissioner of this county. That's his car, and you just made a false report." The silence that followed was so heavy it felt like the world had stopped spinning. Karen's smirk melted into horror, her body trembling as the chief's words echoed in every recording device present. And in that frozen moment, with the cuffs still on my wrists and every eye on us, I knew the real reckoning was only just beginning. The silence broke like glass under a hammer. Neighbors gasped, some covered their mouths, and others muttered things like, "Wait, he's the commissioner." The officers who had cuffed me looked like the ground had opened beneath their feet. One scrambled with the keys, fumbling to unlock the cuffs. Chief Daniel's voice boomed again, dripping with controlled fury. You cuffed a man who outranks half this department because a woman with a clipboard screamed loud enough? Did you even bother to check the registration? The officers' faces burned crimson. Karen staggered backward, her smug grin gone, her whole body trembling with disbelief. No, this isn't fair. He doesn't belong here. People like him don't. She choked on her own words as the crowd gasped, because everyone heard what she almost said. It wasn't about the car. It was about me, my skin, my background. The parts of me she'd hated quietly until today when her hatred spilled into daylight. The chief wheeled on her, his eyes blazing. You filed a false report. You wasted police resources. And you tried to publicly humiliate an innocent man. That's obstruction at best, criminal harassment at worst. He signaled to the deputies, but this time the cuffs weren't for me. They were for her. The officers stepped toward Karen, and she panicked. You can't do this. I'm the HOA president. I have authority, but her shrill protests only made the moment more surreal. The same woman who had called the cops as her personal army was now being cuffed by them in front of the whole neighborhood. The neighbors erupted, some with cheers, others with shouted condemnation. Phones zoomed in, catching every second as Karen was pressed against the hood of a cruiser, her sequin blouse straining against her bulk, her tiara-like hairpin falling to the asphalt. One woman yelled, "That's for finding me over my flowers." Another shouted, "This is what happens when you abuse power." It was a rebellion years in the making, and it all exploded in one night. But the twist that made everything undeniable came days later, in court. The prosecutor stood before the judge, holding a thick file. Your Honor, this case isn't just about a false report. It's about a pattern of abuse. We have testimony from over a dozen neighbors, evidence of fraudulent fines, misuse of HOA funds, and systematic harassment. The judge raised an eyebrow, flipping through the evidence as Karen sat at the defense table, her once arrogant posture slumped into defeat. The videos of me in cuffs, of Chief Daniels calling her out, and of her screaming, "People like him don't belong here," played on the courtroom screens. The jury's faces hardened with each replay. Karen tried to defend herself, claiming she was protecting community standards, but every word dug her grave deeper. When the judge finally spoke, his voice cut like steel. You didn't protect this community. You terrorized it. And in doing so, you broke the law. This court finds you guilty of filing a false police report, harassment, and discrimination under civil rights statutes. The gavel fell with a crack that echoed like thunder. Karen's face crumpled as the reality set in: fines she couldn't afford, probation, and a permanent mark that destroyed the power she had clung to for years. The HOA collapsed within weeks. Members resigned en masse, terrified of being dragged down with her. County officials announced an oversight committee, promising reforms to prevent abuse of power. For the first time, our neighborhood belonged to its people, not to a tyrant with a clipboard. But the most powerful moment came at a town hall meeting after the trial. Neighbors who had once hidden behind curtains stepped up to the microphone. Mrs. Thompson spoke about how Karen had fined her for letting her grandchildren play chalk hopscotch. Mr. Alvarez revealed how Karen had tried to blacklist him from meetings for questioning expenses. One by one, voices rose, not with fear, but with relief, with pride, with the knowledge that silence was no longer their prison. I sat in the back with my wife, Ranger at my feet, the spotlight no longer on me, but on the collective power of a community standing together. When it was my turn, I rose slowly, the room falling silent. This isn't about a car, I said. This is about dignity, about truth, about the difference between authority and abuse. We all have the right to live without fear, no matter what driveway we park in or what car sits in it. My words weren't dramatic, but they didn't need to be. The applause that followed rattled the walls. As for Karen, the last I saw of her was a blurry photo online, head down, hair disheveled, shuffling out of the courthouse in shame. She had been stripped of her titles, her control, her reputation. All that remained was the cautionary tale she left behind. The Rolls-Royce sat gleaming in my driveway that evening, not as a symbol of wealth, but of resilience, of justice, of truth standing firm in the face of hate. So I ask you now, reader, When someone abuses power to strip another of dignity, do you bow to their noise? Or do you stand up and expose them for who they are? Was I right to fight Karen's lies head on? Or should I have stayed silent and let the storm pass? Tell me, where would you stand if the cuffs were placed on your wrists for nothing but envy and spite?